for December 15th, 2022. Everybody please rise for the pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Our agenda this evening is as follows. This has been posted on the town website and the town board. We just have one item on our agenda tonight. The Folsom Development Site Plan. Applicant seeks to construct a two-story medical building on property located at 112 McChesney Avenue. Folsom Development at Albany LLC is the applicant. Okay. First, before we do that, I would like to review the minutes of our past meeting on December 1st. Are there any changes, corrections, or additions that have to be made? Okay, hearing none, I will make a motion to accept the minutes as they were submitted. Second, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Okay. First on our agenda. Go for it.
Good evening. I'm Skip Francis with Creighton Manning Engineering. Greg Bestwick sends his regrets if not attend tonight, so substitute weekend for him. Just to recap, we left last meeting with the assignment to just confirm with Mr. Bill Bradley that he is okay with the sewer alignment and easements that were proposed in alternate A that I have on the easel here, as well as in your packages. We did reach out to Mr. Bradley the day after, December 2nd, day after last meeting, on December 2nd, and he did reply that he did recall the site meeting that we did have in September with him, September 26th, for the site meeting we had to discuss. But we got his confirmation on December 2nd that he was okay with this concept shown on this drawing, provided that the easements are obtained. And the other question that came up last meeting was, is McChesney county right-of-way or DOT right-of-way? I'm told that, as you may recall, McChesney Avenue has been realigned in the past, and by doing so and realigning it to a 90-degree angle intersection, a portion of this is in the DOT right-of-way, the remainder is in county right-of-way. But we are aware of that, and we will ensure that both DOT and county are involved. At some point where this easement crosses, it may still be in DOT, but if it's county, we'll involve the county. I don't know where that separation of right-of-way line crosses McChesney after that realignment had occurred.
Okay.
But we do acknowledge that, and we'll involve both of them.
Wayne, do you have any additional comments or?
Additional comments? No.
Okay.
No, I can confirm that, Bill Bradley did approve in concept the location and the type of gravity sewer that they're proposing to locate in town. The town will take over a portion of that sewer line.
Well, there was a discussion at the last meeting, what comes first, the chicken or the egg, as far as design of the system.
Right.
The applicant didn't want to get into a formal design until it was approved.
Right.
Have those issues been addressed?
We have not received any additional details as to construction of that sewer line.
Okay.
Now that we know that all the pieces are falling into place in terms of Mr. Bradley being okay with it, and the landowners are amenable to the idea. They provided correspondence at the last meeting that they're willing to grant easements. We have enough pieces in front of us now, bubbles coming together, that we can proceed with those details of the sewer design and share those with Mr. Bradley and Mr. Bonesteel prior to any construction occurring. We'll have a chance to review those. If that is incorporated as a condition, we'd be satisfied with that as well.
All right. I did have a conversation with Andy Gilchrist today, and we were discussing conditions for the approval of this project. But before we get into that, is there any other questions that anybody on the board may have on this? Okay, Andy, would you like to review some of those conditions that we talked about on this morning?
Yep. So these are proposed conditions for approval of the site plan. I've generally discussed them with Wayne, reviewed them with Ross. Some things for the board to discuss. And then the first proposed condition deals with the sidewalk issue and the proposal of escrow funds. The condition would be owner shall fund an escrow account of the town of Brunswick. We'll discuss the amount to be utilized for the construction of a sidewalk segment on and along McChesney Avenue within the boundary of the project site. That was offered up by the owner. The only issue with that is that in that case, it would be anticipated that it'd be a public project. The town would be involved in the sewer, or strike that, in the sidewalk construction. And then I think the number that the owner proposed was likely the number it would cost to do the job privately. If there's simply a cost associated with a public job, it'd be prevailing wage, which would be more expensive. That's up to the board to consider the amount that you would require. As I sit here now, I don't have in front of me the amount that the owner proposed. I know it's in the record.
I think it was 5,000.
My recollection is it was north of
I
that.
thought it was 9,000.
Yeah, I thought it was 9,000 range. But I'm presuming that's the number that the owner quoted, basically, he would move forward and do the work. I would think so.
But you said that if the town or,
If it's a public job, it's more expensive because of prevailing wage requirements.
okay. Do you have an idea of how much that would be?
We don't even really know what the limits of that sidewalk are going to be.
That's correct.
There's nothing on paper. It's difficult to estimate how much that would be for a public job.
I don't disagree with Wayne. I just brought that issue up because the number I think that was proposed is if it were constructed privately and then dedicated to the town as opposed to the town doing the job. And Linda, my recollection, that was right in front of me, was it was in the 9,000 plus range. So that'll be up to the board to consider the number, the dollar amount of the escrow.
This is for a sidewalk only in front of the building?
9,600.
That's what I thought it was, in 9,600. Yes, because that would be the proposal, is they would construct a sidewalk segment in front of their project site, as the town has done that with other project, you build it within basically the boundary of your project site, and ultimately it gets linked together as an area is built out. But here, the problem is there's no other existing sidewalks on McChesney, so there's a plan potentially to have a sidewalk system along there, but it doesn't exist yet. So,
How long is it escrow stay in there?
up to the board's discretion. In the past, I'll give you this example, Walmart had an escrow account in conjunction with the sewer pump station in the back of the project, and that was in place for years. It's anticipated that there'll be a certain amount of time to figure out what an overall sidewalk plan would be back there, so.
Is there a year with that 9,600?
I'll go back and look.
I didn't see it.
I don't know if there was any discussion of a term limit on the escrow.
There wasn't. I mean, think about it. This was either, no, owner, you build it, even though it's basically the sidewalk to nowhere at this point, and then it's done. You expended the money, or just put the money into an escrow account. There was no discussion about 5 years.
5 years, and then money goes back to the
It's within the board's discretion if you want to set a term or agree to a term.
So it would be for construction of the sidewalk only on their property. They've stated that they're not allowed to make improvements on somebody else's property or on public property.
Right.
Although it says in the thing, it would be constructed on by others on public property.
From their driveway to the existing road. Which makes sense because there's
From
rock.
the curb cut at 112 McChesney westerly to Brunswick Apartment Road.
There's a big rock outcrop in the other direction.
So, from the curb cut at 112 McChesney, westerly to the road to the apartments. Then it says sidewalk would be constructed by others on public property. Part of the response to the public hearing.
Any guess on how long that one might be?
I couldn't venture a guess.
I can't either.
There's a lot of moving parts, we'll say, to this. The rest of the sidewalk would be along a county road, you'd have to get a county involved. Basically, they would build a connection, pay for a connection to any public sidewalk on Chestnut.
Yeah. It's almost in the nature of a mitigation fee. Those generally are not subject to a term. It's just an account, an amount that's paid into an account, and that's in the nature of a mitigation fee. But that's, again, all of these are within the board's discretion. It was responsive to a comment that was raised during the public hearing, and it's within the board's discretion to handle that issue how it deems appropriate.
Well, this 9,600 is based on today's private wages and materials and so forth and so on. Go out to 5 years, it'd be double that.
Could be.
Let's start.
I think I don't have a problem with $9,610, $10,000 as an escrow account, just as a gesture mitigating effort to do that. You know, you sit here and try and figure out the different costs of this thing and so forth and so on. I think it,
There's no term, Russ.
there's no term.
I would agree with that.
When the sidewalks built. If they want to turn around in 4 years and build the sidewalk anyway, you get their money.
Sounds reasonable.
You might say 96, or just drop it off at $10,000.
$40,000 something.
Yeah. Do a $10,000 escrow account for 5 years.
No term. No term.
No term, excuse me, no term.
I think we then label it, the owner shall fund a non-refundable escrow account.
Yeah.
With the town in the amount of $10,000 for the construction of the sidewalk. It's earmarked for that, so that can't be used for any general fund purposes. It's earmarked for sidewalk construction in the amount, approximate amount of what was proposed, but without a term.
Is the applicant okay with that?
I believe they would be with revising that. It's not unreasonable.
Okay.
And it is consistent with if the board, within its discretion, said, no, you build it now, they'd be out of pocket, you know, that would not be coming back. It's just as, almost as a convenience, because there's not an overall sidewalk plan in place yet that will take that amount in escrow in lieu of you constructing a sidewalk.
Okay.
So that was number one. Number two, county approvals for public water connection. 3, county work permit in the county highway boundary for the driveway entrance, and if applicable, for the sewer main installation, based upon what you said, Skip. I think we add that any work permit from DOT within their right of way. We'll add that as number 4, NYS DOT work permit, if applicable.
That'd be added to number 3 or to number 4?
No, I think I'll create a new number 4, standalone, with the DOT work permit if applicable in connection with sewer main installation will be numbered. Sewer main installation. Okay, new number 5. This was something that the zoning board had also raised, signage placed a minimum of 15 feet back from McChesney Avenue travelway. Zoning board had also raised a question about the landscaping plan. Has the landscaping plan considered sightlines in order to maintain visibility at the site driveway location on McChesney?
There's a monument sign on the site plan. It's more than 15 feet.
Yeah. Any landscaping proposed down near the?
No.
No?
Oh. There's a tree there, but there's no like low plantings around the sign.
You see a sign?
Yep, right at the driveway, it's a rectangle. Identified on the site plan as a monument.
Oh, okay.
sign.
Is there a street light in that area for the entrance?
That sign's not lighted.
Could probably have some base lights to it.
I'm sorry,
It probably would have some ground mounted lights shining on it. Just to give it some illumination. I don't think it's lit from the inside.
What are the hours for you to that light in the hour?
It might be set to daylight, and go dusk, dawn, dusk lighting kind of thing.
Dawn to
So
dusk.
it would vary during the evenings as daylight
So we're not
changes.
talking about 11 o'clock at night.
No, it's not gonna be shining brightly, but as you drive by it at 4:30, 9 o'clock at night, you'll see the sign to the medical office building, yes. It's not that you would see it.
At 9 o'clock at night. Will anyone be there at 9 o'clock at night?
I would just say that it's probably very illuminated that you could see it like you would see any other monument sign at any time at dark outside your headlights.
There has to be some type of lighting strictly for security reasons also.
There's lighting in the parking lot.
Parking lots.
The lighting plan shows it pretty dark around the sun.
Is there a fixture at all lighting showing?
No, there's no power to it or a fixture showing.
Then I might be misspeaking, maybe it's an non-illuminated font. If there's nothing on the site plan, we'll defer to that.
There's a little bit of residual light there, but not a lot.
I would suggest on this condition that signage placed a minimum of 15 feet back from the McChesney Avenue travelway, semicolon landscaping shall not impact sight lines at the site driveway location.
There's no landscaping proposed from the side.
Yeah, that's okay, but that'll be a condition of the site plan going forward, who knows what to make that.
Well, what kind of impact is this sidewalk and home are gonna have on the location of the sign and the edge of the landscaping? There's a lot to consider.
And I think that the answer to that is to be determined based on the overall sidewalk plan for that length of road, right? Because it's more than just the town involved in those discussions, is what he says, it's the county too, county road. The next condition was something that was, again, principally raised at the zoning board public hearing, but they wanted to have the planning board consider it. There is a fair amount of site grading to prep the site, and whether hours of operation for that grading should be considered. Principally raised by the resident directly opposite of Winchester.
I believe that's no shale in there. We're doing
Yeah.
blasting.
They're not going to be blasting. The representation that the zoning board was, it will be bricked.
Also, what were the hours of, pre-construction grading for like Hannaford, like 7 to 4 or something like that?
It's at 7 to 7.
7 to 7.
Yeah, that was some,
We don't know. Frost is in the ground already. I don't know if we'll be out there.
I mean, I would make it consistent with what they usually approve. I mean, the grading, how long would grading take? A few weeks, maybe?
For this site, yes, probably 1 to 6 weeks, 1 to 2 months max.
And your experience on other sites, this is 7 to 7.
It's
And
reasonable.
reasonable?
If your town is presented that timeframe on other sites nearby, that's pretty good with us.
Leanne, any additional comments on that? Would that be agreed?
I think 6 weeks is probably a reasonable estimate. It's been pretty-
Okay,
That's 7 to 7, Monday through Friday, any weekend hours.
do you want weekend hours?
If they did, it would be probably just a Saturday only. It would involve overtime for the contractor, so I doubt they would want to work too much. But they might have a rainy week, might want to catch up on a Saturday, so it might be helpful to throw on a Saturday hour. Please.
It's usually reduced in some.
7 to 5, I think we did Hanford.
We can do 7 to 5 and we can do it on Saturday.
Okay, Saturday, on Saturdays only.
No Sundays, no holidays.
Thank you.
Okay,
Okay, next deals with the sewer issue. Letter A, town county approvals for sewer connections. B, this was the issue about the details. Detailed plan for sewer improvements subject to, I think we should insert review and approval by the town of Brunswick Water Department and the planning board review engineer. C, and these were the easements. We keep talking about easements, but easements don't exist yet. They're simply general letters indicating they would be agreeable to an easement. So easements in recordable form filed with the Brunswick Water Department for all sewer work on third-party private properties. And because there's a dedication part of this, such easements shall include a clause that is intended that such easement shall be assigned to the town of Brunswick as part of the sewer main dedication. So if the sewer main is accepted by the town, they'll take title to the pipe, and they'll need legal access to get onto the land and the need for repair or replacement, maintenance of the pipe. If it's on the project site, the owner, as part of the dedication, will grant title to the pipe in easement. But over these third-party properties, those third-party easements need to be assignable to the town too, in order for the town to get access to that length of pipe. So those easements have to be very clear that they're intended to be transferred to the town. And then letter D, dedication of the new sewer main to the town of Brunswick in compliance with all dedication requirements of the Brunswick Town Code, conditioned on confirmation by the Brunswick Water Department that the sewer main has been constructed and completed in conformance with the approved plans and specs. A little generic, I'm not sure at this point exactly what area, what would be formally accepted by the town, so we'll let that dedication issue there, but not specific. And the last proposed condition is stormwater compliance, file the notice of intent to comply with DEC's general permit for construction activities, compliance with all applicable stormwater regs, and the town will require the town's stormwater management facilities maintenance and easement agreement to be prepared, and that needs to be executed before the building can be occupied.
Hey, I have a question.
Yeah.
In light of, one section of that sewer line that needs to be repaired, right? Is it issue that we're ready to install?
Correct.
In light of that, should we allow some funding for inspection? For the installation of that section of the sewer line? To avoid having the same issue that we're correcting under this section? I'm just asking for some.
It's not unusual to have an escrow account set up for inspection of utilities and infrastructure.
I think it might be prudent being that they're fixing the damage and the properly installed line, so to speak.
Wait, you have thought on it, huh?
about $3,000.
Anybody have any questions on that? Is everybody agreeable that $3,000 would be adequate?
That's for,
And Wayne, that's particular to the sewer line?
correct.
So I've added it as a sub E, owner shall fund an escrow account for inspection fees concerning sewer line construction and or repair in the amount of $3,000.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions or comments on all those conditions as we discussed? And just as a clarification, on number one, it's $10,000.
Correct. And it will indicate a non-refundable escrow account.
Is there any time limit that has to be put on the other escrow?
Now, generally, it's not, it's used for, they'll be there for use during the inspection of the sewer.
Okay.
Really driven by the owner's construction schedule.
Is there any other conditions that anybody would like to discuss? That they may want to include on this? Does the applicant have any questions on the items that we discussed? That being said, we could proceed ahead with an approval with these conditions. If everybody is in agreement with that.
I just have one question. You've got power line going down the street. Gonna be buried or above ground, you know?
I thought there's a transformer on here, so, yes, there is a
What was it back
transformer
then?
on the site. So my humble opinion is to be underground.
That would be preferable.
Okay.
There's a backup generator as well, isn't there? That would take for a
Yes.
medical facility?
Yes. Right next to the transformer.
So we talked about the proximity of that, or it was way out on the other side of the parking lot, and we were talking about proximity to the building, so brought it in closer to the building.
I think I remember seeing the iteration over here.
Yeah.
Yes, right next to the building.
You have to do a super,
That's been done.
that's been done.
Yeah, completed seeker, the zoning board approved the area variance for the building height. And so the last thing is action by the board on the segment.
Okay.
Fire department chimed in on this, it's so long, I can't remember, we had a fire department chime in on this, right?
Okay, we can move forward if you so desire. Would anybody like to make a motion? A motion with the conditions that we discussed and finalized this evening. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, is there any further discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? We're all set.
Thank you very much.
And all these conditions and everything will be included in the minutes of the meeting.
Okay.
So, once those are published, you'll be able to, you can get those on the website.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you, and have a happy holiday.
You too. You all.
And that concludes our regular agenda. There is no new business, right?
The yellow sheets that I handed out, I guess, could be considered new business. They are a tree cutting plan for North Troy Solar. Just in a quick review of it, why myself and Bill Bradley do not see where the tree removal for the power line that heads north up off the site, where that's included in this request.
Okay,
You read the narrative, they're just planning on felling the trees to be able to not be in the reproductive cycle of the bats. The New York State has put the brown bat as an endangered species, and initially it was just the long-eared bat, but I guess the brown bats are not in such good shape either since the white nose disease. So that was the request. Now, in I was hesitant of whether whether it doesn't require board approval because they already have an approved project. The project could be approved through a soil disturbance permit, logging permit, something to that effect.
So this is an additional tree. This is trees that we approved to take down.
Yes, within the border area, a lot of it for the fence. I expected it to be a handful of trees, such as what happened with Oakwood, where there was a certain species of tree that was definitely bat habitat, and they had just removed those. I don't know if you guys remember that. It was 2018 maybe. But this, it seems that they're clear cutting that area of anything 3 inches and above at breast height.
Right, to satisfy DEC, all they have to do is cut the tree down. And they don't have to cut the stumps, they don't have to
Right.
haul the trees away.
Right.
All they have to do is cut them down.
Seems like an awful lot of things.
All it was whatever was within the clearing limits that was approved in the site.
The last picture in that pamphlet, those trees ain't much. You know, bigger than brush.
They're fairly new growth, right?
Right.
They're not old trees.
It's brush. It's not part of the original screening. That's going to contain.
No, not within the clearing limits of the site.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like most of these trees are probably 6 inches and under. That's all I'm going.
It's fairly new growth.
So why are they asking for permission? I'm confused.
That may be
Because
my
they don't
fault,
have-
Kev. I might have sent them in the wrong direction.
Well, they don't have permits yet, right? Still-
No,
they're
there
not
no
building.
permits issued. I've
No,
received
they're
no
not.
plans.
They're not permitted to start construction yet. They have to get the trees down
No,
in accordance with DEC before March 1st.
as well as there's some still things that the board requires, which would be the decommissioning bond as well as the stormwater agreement. And both of those have to be done at the town board. So that's another board that only meets once a month that they have to be in line with and make sure that they get everything approved.
So this basically is just an afterthought to our.
For information purposes.
I was gonna say
Doesn't need
FYI,
board.
yeah.
Okay, no action has to be taken on this.
They're not making any changes to the site
Right.
No, for certain conditions to your site plan, special use permit approval that still need to be complied with. The pilot agreement for the project was approved, but they have to have the stormwater agreement and the decommissioning bond approved by Temple.
I think this would be a good opportunity to mention that the moratorium on solar has been approved, passed,
Yep, it was adopted and it's
adopted. That's-
presumed that it's been sent to the Department of State for filing, so moratorium will be in effect.
So all that information that you have for CBE and the other two projects for Atlas
Right, those two
are,
Brunswick and
you
Sequoia.
might as well put them back on, put them on the shelf first. So there's no action to be taken by this board on any of those.
The only other handout this evening was the plans for Mr. Bernina. We were interested in what the addition was going to look like on the house. He will have his public hearing at our next meeting, the first one in January.
And just to expand on that, that appears to be the only item on the agenda.
Appears to be so far, yet.
So our first meeting in 2023 is just the public hearing on Mr. Bernini's special use permit. Now, there is also part of the adopted, the multifamily,
The high density housing.
high density housing portion of that. That was also on that same,
correct.
and Andy and I had some discussion about this, whether it impacts any projects that are currently on the board's agendas, potential agendas, in particular Brunswick Acres. And because that's an approved PDD, that does not apply at this time.
Yeah, subject to further, if needed, legal review, that project has been approved as a planned development district by the town board, and this board granted conditional final subdivision approval. It doesn't appear that any work has started on the project site yet, but it's within their period of time to satisfy conditions attached to the final approval.
There's sunset to that, Andy?
Well, under state law, they have initially 180 days, subject to two 90-day extensions upon approval by the planning board. So there's a time limit under state law. So whether they comply with that or not, if they fail to, then their approval terminates, doesn't matter what law.
We're probably 3 months into that right now, but
Approval was in September.
Yeah.
Well, one of the initial discussions with the, Mr. Casal, that they wanted to get in on there with that conditional approval so they could have things done by November in order for the health department to come in and reevaluate those particular lots that they had not approved. So obviously that didn't happen.
Correct.
Doesn't show to me that there's a good faith effort being made by the applicant at this point.
I know the town has reached out multiple times seeking additional escrow funds, which they have not gotten any response from the owner. So all those are factors for you to take into account if they ask for the further extension on conditional approval.
All right. As far as any other projects that we did have some initial approach by Russ Reeves in regards to the Sillis project, which is down on Pole Lane. What impact would that have if it comes to that?
I gave you the general rule, which is if you've got an application pending in front of the board and there's a change in the law, which in this case change in the zoning law or the subdivision regs, that new law does apply. There's a difference between having an approved project where you've made an investment in the project and arguably your rights under that approval have vested. You don't have any vested rights while your project's still in the review stage, and the new law would arguably apply. The general rule is the new zoning law applies. So in that case, the density cap, the density calculation, it's not only applicable to multifamily, it's applicable to subdivision. How many lots can be approvable on a particular project site. So applicants for subdivision will need to go through the density calculation to determine the number of allowable lots.
But that land is pretty much 100% usable, so they should be in pretty good shape there. What about the multifamily that they were looking at Columbus Corners? There was two 9,600 square foot mixed-use structures.
I don't think we even got an official application on
I
Yeah,
do
we did.
recall, yeah. But again, that's in a review stage and the new law does apply.
That one is not going to make the land use area because of the hill in the back. Probably the usable land on that parcel is probably divided in half.
There's gonna be some constraints on that property because of the slope, you're right.
that. Okay. So reviewing our agenda for our next meeting, as I stated before, there's just the NEA, special use permit and a public hearing at 7 o'clock. This meeting is scheduled for January 5th. I don't know of any other business. We have not received any new business, so that could be a rather short meeting in itself.
For the mailing list, it constituted 5 people. I think so.
All right.
It wants the school district, so.
Is there any other
Well,
business
one's the
that we
guy who
have to
bought the land
discuss?
from.
Okay. And before we adjourn, I'd like to wish everybody a happy holiday, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and we'll see you next year. So, I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed?
Yeah.
Then you got the land that nobody owns, that landlocked lot. That's,